My favorite fighter, the 7th best striker, Israel Adesanya, is back this weekend, and he'll be fighting Sean Strickland. And where do you guys think that Sean Strickland lands on that list on the best strikers in MMA? Because when we're talking about IZZY, we're talking about a guy that's clearly top 10. I have him as high as number 7. But guys, I think that Sean Strickland is likely going to need to bring his banana peels to the octagon, if you know what I'm getting at. Because let's just be fucking real. Let's be real. What is most likely? The likely thing that's going to take place this weekend is we're going to see a little pit-pat, patty-wat, back-and-forth point decision from Adesanya, and he's just simply too good for Sean Strickland. We're going to need a Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman type of moment where Adesanya's twirling around in the octagon trying to style on him, and maybe he gets overly zealous and he doesn't manage the distance properly. Knowing Adesanya, he doesn't take those kinds of risks. He's not the same showboater as Anderson Silva, and therefore, I'm going to break down why Sean Strickland cannot beat Israel Adesanya this weekend and why, well, we're most likely going to see this go the full distance. And let me just make this clear, okay? Because I need to get this out of the way so that all the IZZY fanboys that are going to say, well, you're telling me you can't finish him. Clearly, he can finish Sean Strickland. Adesanya can finish anyone if he's presented the right moment. But I just don't think that's most likely, so I'm not going to pick it to happen. I think that he's going to go to a little pit-pat, patty-wat, back-and-forth tennis match with Sean Strickland when he resorts to cruise mode if he can't finish him early. But if he finishes him, it's going to be in the early first or second round when Adesanya takes a little bit more risks than he usually does in the later rounds of his fights. And I have the exact method in which he's probably going to get a KO if he does get a KO. Don't even try to act like I don't know the game like that. All right, let's get into the breakdown right now. All right, so the first thing that I want to discuss is the grappling of Sean Strickland. A lot of people are saying if he just pulls his bread and butter out, he's going to get the job done, as if he's some kind of 80cc level grappler that was a killer before he came into the UFC on the ground, submitting high-level black belts. That's not the case. I understand that Sean Strickland, way back in the dinosaur era of his career, had a couple of rear naked chokes against guys that were cans that are no longer in the UFC. Ever since he got demolished by Kamaru Usman, he's made it a point to move away from jiu-jitsu. And if you don't use it, you lose it. When have we seen Sean Strickland dominate anyone with his grappling? Or, I say the word dominate, when have we seen him win a fight by submission or ground and pound, or just hurt someone badly on the ground in his recent UFC run while he's been in the rankings? Never. Sean Strickland can take people down. There's an idea that he doesn't shoot takedowns. Couldn't be further from the truth. Sean Strickland does use takedowns, and he actually lands them at a high clip. He's very accurate with them as well. It's just that when he gets the fight to the mat, people get right up to their feet instantly. And because I've seen other guys get right up to their feet, even though Adesanya is not some masterful defensive grappler, that's what his MO has been when it comes to training and grappling to begin with for the past, 7-8 years, however long he's been in MMA. He's just been training to shut down submission artists, to shut down wrestlers. And I do think that Sean Strickland will be able to take IZZY down in this fight multiple times, but Adesanya has been doing all this specifics training with guys like Craig Jones, and he's been working on his takedown defense for ages, and it's held up. He's been able to get up to his feet with guys like Marvin Vettori, who's made mistakes on the ground. You know, when Vettori had Adesanya's back and he was doing everything in his power to choke him out with his arms, and he forgot that the hooks needed to be synced in on the body lock. And of course, Robert Whittaker took the back of IZZY in their fight, but he just looked like a toddler on IZZY's back because Whittaker's a bit of a small middleweight. Now, Strickland's not a small middleweight. He'll be able to get IZZY down, but it's like, has he done any better than Robert Whittaker in the grappling exchanges throughout his career? Dude, not really. At the end of the day, Sean Strickland just simply hasn't proven to be able to finish fights on the ground or hurt people down there or work towards submissions. I'm not going to count on that. I think he is going to get a couple of takedowns here and there, but another thing that I wanted to bring up before I get into the striking, if you're a really high-level striker like Robert Whittaker, okay, Jan Blachowicz, these guys give Adesanya different threats to think about on the feet. Like Robert Whittaker has a piston-like jab that can snap the head back of IZZY, and we saw him working that jab in their fight. We saw Jan Blachowicz checking the leg kicks of IZZY, throwing leg kicks of his own, jabbing IZZY up a little bit. IZZY had to think about all these different things on the feet. Sean Strickland, Yes, he's a pretty good striker for the middleweight division, but there's still a pretty significant gap between him and Izzy, whereas Whittaker has been able to close that gap a little bit. And Jan Blachowicz is a guy that's right up there with Izzy in regards to skill. I think that if you're a high-level striker and you possess some kind of power in your hands, or you just have to, or you have the ability to go to a chess match with him, that's when your takedowns can be a little bit more successful. That's when your takedowns can make the difference between just having a close round and actually winning the round. I don't think that Sean Strickland has the level of striking to be able to go tit for tat with Izzy to the point to where a takedown can win him the round. And this is why we're going to get into the striking now. It's because Sean Strickland has such a lack of variety to his game. For example, he has a good jab, and that's one of the things that you need to beat Adesanya on the feet, because we know Adesanya is a counter striker. Well, is there a weapon that you can throw that is a safe weapon that's not going to leave yourself open to getting countered? That's not necessarily a high risk, high reward weapon. Of course, it's the jab. The jab is like the safest bet kind of weapon that you could use against Izzy, and it just so happens that Sean Strickland's jab is his bread and butter. That's what he does best. And Adesanya, his jab is nothing to write home about. People have been able to get into the boxing range and out-jab him. As I said, Robert Whittaker out-jabbed Adesanya. Jan Blachowicz out-jabbed Adesanya. Alex Pereira out-jabbed Adesanya. The difference between Strickland and Whittaker, for example, is that Whittaker's so much faster and he's just simply a higher level striker. And the difference between Strickland and guys like Jan Blachowicz and guys like Alex Pereira is their ability to take away what Izzy does best, which is the leg kicking game. Sean Strickland throws like a couple of leg kicks per fight, and I'm not over-exaggerating at all. I'm talking like 3 or 4 per fight, and he's not that great at checking them. How do you beat Izzy? First and foremost, on the feet, you have to out-leg kick him, or you have to be able to go tit for tat. You have to be able to check the leg kicks to make Adesanya pay for throwing them in the first place, and you also have to chop at his legs to take away his movement. Strickland doesn't have that option. Like, let me bring up Jared Cannonier, for example. One of the things that allowed Jared Cannonier to hang in there was the fact that he was leg kicking Adesanya. And it's not like he was winning exchanges with this, but it just slowed Izzy's movement down just a little bit. And it also allowed him to mix in different attacks to give Adesanya other things to think about. Strickland really only has a jab and a right hand, and that's kind of it. And his leg kicks, as I said, they're non-existent. Adesanya's body is there for the taking too, because we've seen people go to the body and have success, especially when you have a guy like Izzy that likes to lean back to throw big winging hooks like he's knocked out guys like Paulo Costa with or Robert Whittaker with. But Strickland, the only body work this guy uses is a little flimsy front teep to the body, and that's it. For the most part, he's not jabbing you to the body. He's not throwing hooks to the body. And for that reason, Strickland's only chance to do well on the feet in this fight is to get in boxing range and to pop a jab on Adesanya's nose. And that's really it. I just think that he's going to be completely outmatched in regards to variety. And you need a little bit of variety to outdo Adesanya on the feet. And Strickland just doesn't have that. Now, thank goodness, Strickland does have this. And that is a very defensively sound approach to his fights. As I mentioned, he's very good at slipping and getting out of the way of punches because of all the sparring that he does. He's just used to it. If you look at Sean Strickland's face early on in his fights, outside of the Alex Pereira matchup when he had his chin on a silver platter and he fought him with reckless abandon because he wanted to prove a point and he had a big chip on his shoulder and he wanted to go out there and overcompensate to show everyone that he could stand with a big, scary Brazilian kickboxer. Outside of that, Strickland honestly looks like he's shitting his pants early on in his fights. It looks like he's really, really nervous. And that's normal for fighters to be nervous, but he wears it heavily on his facial expression and it comes to fruition in his style. Sean Strickland plays it extremely safe on the feet early on in his fights. He makes it a point not to get KO'd. It takes a while for him to ease into it, to pick up confidence. And I think that ultimately, the reason why I'm going to go with Sean Strickland to make it to the final bell in the 5th round is because he's not going to give Adesanya the chance to knock him out. He's not going to be rushing forward and going into one of Izzy's traps, and he will be able to get a takedown here or there in this fight to where that takes a little bit of Adesanya's momentum on the feet away. But ultimately, I just still don't think he's going to get it done. Like, I have a hard time thinking about how Sean Strickland's going to steal a round here or there. It's going to be hard for him to get into the dirty boxing range of Adesanya. It just is. And as you get closer to Izzy, you are more likely to fall into his trap. So I think that Strickland's just going to play it very safe, guys. And I don't think that Izzy is going to move forward all that much in this fight. Izzy has hardly ever hurt people while moving forward. The only times I can even think of him destroying anyone while moving forward is dropping Whitaker in their rematch with the left hand. And that's pretty much it. Other than that, he TKO'd Rob Wilkinson in his first ever UFC fight, but Rob Wilkinson was a dead man walking up against the fence at that point. And it's like, of course, Adesanya can finish someone like that, but most of his finishes come when someone's bum rushing him, like Robert Whitaker in the first fight. I think that Adesanya is just going to outpoint him a little bit on the feet, but he's not going to find the KO unless, and this is what it comes down to. My official prediction, guys, is going to be a 50-45 from Adesanya. Okay, 50-45, maybe 49-46 if Strickland can just somehow edge out a round by landing a couple of jabs and holding Izzy down for like 20 or 30 seconds. But the way Izzy is going to finish Sean Strickland, in my opinion, unless he catches him with like a big right hand, a counter right hand, if Strickland gets a little bit frustrated in this fight and just tries to say fuck it and go all out like the Korean Zombie did to Max Holloway, unless that happens, I do think that Strickland is very, very, very open to one thing, and that is head kicks, and this is why. Adesanya early on in his fights, one of the reasons why he's super dangerous in the early going of his fights is obviously because he has the quick twitch ability, but he also takes a little bit more risks. Adesanya will throw more head kicks early on in his fights than he does in the third, fourth, and fifth round. Guys like Jared Cannonier, guys like Marvin Vettori, guys like Robert Whitaker have all ducked out of the way of head kicks. And you heard what I just said. They've ducked down out of the way of head kicks. They're all kind of stocky in comparison to Adesanya. They're all 6 foot 5'11". Sean Strickland's a pretty tall guy for the middleweight division. He's like a tall 6'1". The way that Sean Strickland defends head kicks is just by moving back. And that's pretty much the way he always defends strikes, no matter what you're giving him. But he leans back with head kicks. And I've seen him get clipped with partially landed head kicks plenty of times in his career. The most recent example being in the first round against Abus Magomedov, who partially landed a head kick on the chin of Sean Strickland when Strickland was moving back. Adesanya is going to be so much better at setting up the head kicks. He's going to be faster. He's going to have a more technical kick to begin with. And because he's going to be conditioning Sean Strickland to try to think low with all the leg kicks, if he throws a head kick on Sean Strickland, I don't think that it's going to be the best kind of defense to just move his head back. And you also have to think of the fact that Sean Strickland, look at his stance. He has his lead hand low. And I know he's got the right hand, the rear hand glued to his face, and that could be good for defending things, but it's hard to bring both of your hands up to guard the head kick. I think that if Izzy gets him out of there, I think that there's going to be a chance that it's going to be a head kick KO. If you're just looking at the way that Sean Strickland defends these things. Other than that, it would have to be a big counter shot. But for the most part, I'm going with Adesanya to win this by a decision like a 50-45, 49-46. I think a lot of his fans might be disappointed because everyone's expecting him to go out there and just rush through Sean Strickland. But I know Sean Strickland's a guy that's not really going to turn it into a dogfight. I know he talks a big game, but that's how Sean Strickland is. His fight style is a little bit more boring. And if you're not really going to take it to Izzy, unless you're going to sit there like the frozen one, like Paulo Costa, he's probably not just going to run through you. That's just how it is. Sean Strickland is defensively sound. He's good in the boxing range, and Adesanya's boxing is nothing to write home about. But I do think Izzy's going to fuck this guy's legs up and dance around him for 5 rounds. But it's not going to be like a Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar type of beating that Izzy's fans are expecting. Come on, have you even watched a single one of Adesanya's fights? It seems like a lot of them haven't. But, I'm just joking around a little bit, guys. Izzy's going to get this one done. Strickland's got cardio, but Izzy has cardio. He's not going to break Izzy in this fight. And if Strickland wins, he's going to have to knock Adesanya out. I just don't see him outpointing Izzy unless he can just miraculously improve big time on the offensive grappling. And I'm sure he's been working on it. A lot of guys have shown the ability to just massively improve this year, like Dricus du Plessis looking like a sloppy boppy man in the Derek Brunson fight too, destroying Robert Whitaker. I just don't think Strickland has it. And also, he doesn't have the KO potential. He doesn't have that kind of power. So it's going to go to a decision. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time.